like breakfast. And so I change it up. I like to do things like that. You see, in our walk with Christ, there are times things can become routine. And we tend to drift away from the things of God if we're not careful. And we get caught up with other stuff. The best way for a Christian to keep their walk with Christ fresh is to recognize when we have a need for a revival. How many have ever got to a place where you sensed in your heart there was something missing? There was something dry. Something just wasn't like it used to be when I first met Jesus. Anybody know what I'm talking about? And I'm kind of just going through the motions, and I'm not feeling what I used to feel, and I just need a fresh touch from God. Anybody there? Come on. You understand what I'm talking about. You see, the best way for a Christian is to keep that walk fresh and recognize when we need a revival. And revival is the process of starting over. Going back to that first place where you met the Lord. Going back to that commitment and that desire to serve Him with all your heart. You see, revival starts in the altars. Let me say it again. Revival starts in the altars. I'll take you to a story found in Genesis. And in chapter 35, we talked about this young man. Well, he was young at the time. He's gone now. He's old. But his name was Jacob. And in verse 35, it tells the story of Jacob and how he had come to a place in his life where he recognized that he had drifted from God. You see, Jacob, he was the son of a man by the name of Isaac. And we talked about this. We're talking Hebrews on Wednesday night. So you're missing Hebrews. You're missing some good stuff. We're going through Hebrews verse by verse. Last week we did 3 verses in Hebrews chapter 11. And we covered 3 different characters during that time. I'm here to tell you, we're just studying the Word. We're having a good time. And I encourage you, come. If you're not in church on Wednesday nights, I encourage you, come and hear the Word. But Jacob was a man who had to a household. He had a brother by the name of Esau. How many of you remember Esau? Esau was his brother, and Esau was a hairy man. He was red, he was hairy. The Bible talks about how he was a man who liked to hunt. He was a man who would go out and kill the game. He loved to be able to fix that fresh venison or whatever he had, and he fixed it for his father. And if you remember the story when Jacob and Esau were about to the place where Jacob said, I'm getting old, or his dad Isaac said, I'm getting old. He told his son, Isaac told his son Esau to go out and slaughter this thing, hunt and kill this thing, bring it in, fix it up for him, and he would bless him. Jacob went in and he took the blessing. We talked about this Wednesday night. Jacob got the blessing, his rock under his head. And during the night while he's laying there, he has a dream, the Bible says. And in that dream, he meets God. He has an experience like he's never experienced in all of his life. And all of a sudden, there were angels who were ascending and descending on a stairway up into heaven. And he was amazed, and he said, certainly, this is the place where God dwells, and I have been in His presence. And so when he got up that next morning, he got up, and the Bible says he took that stone that he laid his head on, and he took and he poured oil on top of it, anointed it, and called it Bethel. And the place that was once called Luz now became known as Bethel, or El Bethel, we'll read. And you see, he went on to his uncle Laban's house, and of course the story goes on and on for chapters and chapters of how he meets the daughters of Laban and how he marries them and has children, and he comes back. And as he's coming back, we read how he prepares to meet his brother Esau, because he's afraid that Esau's still going to take his life. And so he sends some of his flocks and his servants out ahead of him. 3 waves of flocks that go out, and then finally it's his children and his wives, and he meets them. When he meets them, he finds favor in his brother's eyes. His brother had forgiven. And he says, come and live in the homeland where our father is, Isaac. He was still alive. And he said, no, I'm going to. And he stayed in a place called Shechem. And while he was at Shechem, the Bible says that one of the daughters of Jacob by the name of Dinah had been taken by the son of the chief, if you will, of the city of Shechem.